Ark Beyond Ascension, Part 13. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey. So we're going to go through and start our journey out today by doing a little bit of expansion on our base, as I've been waiting here for the smoked prime meat, and it took forever. I literally got like 6 pieces within hours of real-life gameplay, and yeah, I was not about to wait around for that, so I decided I actually wanted to go through and build a couple of more to go through and add to the base. Having 4 in total would significantly speed up the production. But then I realized I also need some other stuff for the base as well, so I took the Enki out just across the water to go through and farm up some different spark powder. I needed flint and stone, so I could use the spark powder in the actual preserving bins. I could go through and make that jerky, as I did not actually have all that much spark powder. And I also needed the spark powder as well to go through and craft some ammunition. But then I spotted an Oviraptor just across the way here, and I thought even though it was a low level, it'd be a pretty handy tame to have, as I've already had a couple of situations where the RGs have just straight up popped out of their eggs, and then they grow up too big, and I forget about them, and then I've got to kill them, and then I just a mess at the base. So having him to pick up even just like a dozen eggs would be super helpful, so I brought him back to the base and gave him a nice little bola. Shot him in the face one time, and he knocked out. And then I proceeded to go on about my business. And at this point, it was just a waiting game, so I went to go do some chores. I said I was going to craft up some spark powder with the flint we had got, and then I went to shovel in some dinosaur crap so I could go through and keep my plants and this nice little garden tended to, so we can continue to use these crops for the kibble. And then after that, I made my way back over to the guy, as he had actually not taken all that long to be hungry, and I fed him like 5 different eggs. And it actually only ended up taking 2, but then by the time I was actually able to go in to get him, this guy was starving. He just gobbled up everything. So yeah, he was a selfish little guy. I then went through and spent some additional time going through breeding, still trying to look for that magnificent, beautiful looking RG. As right now, I've got a pretty dull basic one, but he's powerful, so that's a plus. But yeah, I want to look pretty cool while I fly around. I'm tired of looking at these dull colors. There was one that had a mutation, so I went through and I kept him, and I fed the rest to run. I then went through and saw there was a blue drop near the base, so I headed on over to this blue drop. Little did I know this blue drop would actually be game-changing, but I would not know that until much later in this video. But yeah, there's a couple of basic things in here, and once I had that, I continued to go through and look at other drops. I found myself a yellow drop that had some pretty decent gear. It actually had some metal pieces in it, and those are kind of expensive early on, so I was pretty happy with that, especially for the taming purposes, and I had found those here in the Oasis section. And then I went through and I took mustard and figured we were going to head to the mountain, as I was in need of a whole bunch of resources. I wanted to stock up on everything that I could. But I got distracted yet again. There was another Alpha Raptor, and I knew Alpha Raptors all by themselves do not pose all that much of a threat. So I made my way over, and I basically went through and allowed my RG to dig his claws into his face, letting him know that this island was ours and nothing was going to stand in our way. He did have a Ceratosaurus buddy, and I've also got a vendetta against those guys, so I was okay killing both of them. They weren't going to give me too much trouble. And then they brought in reinforcements, thinking that the cavalry would help their situation, but unfortunately Raptors take headshot damage, so I was actually able to go through and dispatch the little guy first, pretty darn easily, and then eventually the big Alpha did end up falling down, and the Ceratosaurus shortly thereafter. And yeah, not too many problems. The Carnos gave me trouble, the Raptors do not. But I decided I was going to go through and make it all the way up to the mountain when I was done, because that was my original plan. And that's one thing I took mustard and basically carried him around with the RG, allowing him to do the automatic metal farming, because I was feeling a bit lazy and didn't want to have to go through and hop off. I also didn't want to get attacked by anything, but yeah, so the whole reason I got the Enki is it just makes the process of metal gathering so much easier. Very quickly, though, I did learn that actual mountain literally had 0 resources left on it, so I made my way over to the ice mountain, and I saw the mammoth was actually doing us a favor and knocked a Palavia off the mountain, which was great because that Palavia was literally right next to the Karcha, and that would have spelt disaster. So kudos to that mammoth for saving our skin without even knowing he possibly could have done it, as there is a huge group of metal right over in between this mountain here. And I was hoping the Karcha would continue doing what he's done this entire game, where he's just sat there. He's shown no interest in me whatsoever. So I swooped on down to go through and try and get some of these metal pieces here. But yeah, this time he was mad. It was like he was the dragon from The Hobbit, and I had just taken his gold. He was not a happy camper. He immediately woke up from his zombie-like trance and started attacking. Now, thankfully, there was a mammoth between me and him, so he went for the mammoth. But yeah, still, when those guys come at you, it can be pretty intimidating. So the moment I saw him making his way towards me, I decided it was not worth the risk, and I left. Now, on the opposite side of the mountain, I did go through and find a little cliff that had a plethora of crystals, so I did go through and harvest that up, as I was going to go through and need some rare mushrooms for additional kibble in the future, and I haven't really paid too much of a visit to the swamp yet, and I figured I would be needing the crystal for a whole bunch of stuff in the fabricator, so I might as well grab it while I was here. And then at this point, it was like my RG had had a Thanksgiving dinner, as he was way too full to be able to go through and do anything, so I had slowly made my way back down to the base, Checked on the breeding here, and our Overraptor did exactly as he was supposed to. He picked up all the eggs, and I went through and I put away all my resources and started smelting down the metal. Oh, and also since the spark powder had finished, I actually went through and loaded up all of the preserving bins with the actual prime meat so I could actually start working on it, making some additional jerky, as I knew I was going to need a whole bunch of that kibble in the near future when I went through and actually started taming some of those additional dinos that I wanted. But then in the middle of all my chores, I got this notification that I was completely caught off guard by. It said that Captain Crappy had died. I had no idea. I looked around for him. I had no idea where he was, and I didn't understand. It said a Dillo had killed him. I was super confused. But yeah, if you go through and look, it literally says, let me scroll down here, and you'll notice that it actually skips a certain day. It goes from like day 7 or 9 to day 100 because apparently photo mode screws up your days. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, he actually died to a Dillo. So here's actually what happened. Remember when I told you this drop earlier was super important? Well, after this drop, immediately I went to go look at this creature I saw on the beach here with the spyglass, and I ran into the same issue with the HUD where I could not see their levels, and the only way to fix this is to go through and to log out and log back in. So I saved the game, I logged out, I logged back in, and the moment I logged back in, apparently I just hopped straight onto my RG, and because when you log out and you log back in, it actually drops down your shoulder pet creature right where you were standing, yeah, Captain Crappy got left there, and that is where the Dillo killed him. So I was pretty sad about that. And if you guys have made it to this point in the video so far, then please let me know what shoulder pet you think I should go after next, because Captain Crappy has been with us for a good amount of time, and I'm definitely going to miss him, but I don't think we should name another monkey. I think we should probably look to find a different shoulder pet. That way we can go through and keep things interesting. Now, if you thought the Captain Crappy mistake was bad, oh boy, do I screw up here. I took Runt, and I tried to go through and kill these RGs that did not get picked up by the Overraptor, and yeah, they completely were all fully grown up, so they were pissed and wanted to fight me, and they were quickly taking out my health, and I could not hit them at all to save my life, as they were just flying and attacking me, doing the same thing that I do with my RG to the alpha creatures, and I knew things were not looking good. So I tried to whistle to one of these specific RGs over here on the side. I knew that I could not actually fight these guys on my own. So I was hoping I can just call one of them. I didn't want to set my entire base on aggressive because, yeah, that would have just been a hot mess, and I really don't want to reorganize things. Unfortunately, I did get the one RG to go through and follow me, and then I went through and made it over to the beach, and as you can see, I actually basically told him to go through and just be neutral because he was passive, and so as soon as he actually caught up here to us, my saber-tooth Runt was taking quite a bit of damage, but the RG finally did make it here to help us out. But unfortunately, they took the battle to the sky, and I knew I couldn't hang out in the water there as I saw some piranhas. But yeah, I completely forgot I could just still switch. I always forget sometimes you can switch your arrows without actually going into your inventory. But I was stressing out because I was like super low, or Runt was super low, and I knew that there's a possibility he could die. And I had no idea if my RG is going to go through and be able to kill these guys, because these guys were all bred up, meaning they had quite a few levels, were a higher level, and so they did some decent damage. And I continued to go through and try and hit them with my bow, but it was utter chaos. I can't believe that I actually did this. And yeah, at this point, they'd gotten me down to half. Runt was almost dead. And I had tried to whistle to my other RG to come help us. But the moment I did, he actually died. So at this point, it was literally just Runt and I with these 3 rogue RGs. So I continued to go through and do the little hop thing you can do with the saber-tooth, as he is quite quick. But yeah, I didn't even get a chance to shoot my shot because of the small little slow animation. When you first get off, you can't shoot right away. So I continued to try and make my way to the back here, not knowing what I could do. And then I realized that the water was going to be my best friend. As long as I could make it there and nothing in the water wanted to kill me, we'd be safe there because birds can't go into the water. So I did pull the little maneuver where I jumped off the saber so he didn't take that fall damage because he is quite close to death. And as you can see, as the RG swooped in for that final kill shot, as Runt has very, very little health, he was not able to kill me. The water actually saved my life. And then I went through and ate up the piranha because there was a piranha there, and that did pose an issue, but Runt made pretty short work of the piranha. They don't do that much damage, and he does quite a bit more than they do. But I was still in a dilemma where they were here and wanted to eat me, but fortunately they could not dive down to the water. Now, I did go through and get attacked by yet another piranha, so that was an issue. I didn't see him. That's why I got off. I thought it was safe, but yeah. Always check your surroundings in the water, as it can be quite dangerous. But fortunately, Runt was able to go through and attack him. He then swam away, coming back in for the final kill, and we dealt with that piranha too. And then it was back to trying to deal with these RGs. I was in such a bad situation. Now, they did stop attacking me, and they all kind of just like waiting around, so I figured I was going to go through and use this time to kill them. And I managed to take the one out there, and then I looked around to find Runt, and he had just disappeared. I had no idea where he went. I was super worried, but then there he was. He was just hanging on the bottom. I guess he was scared of the RGs too, and he didn't want to become bird food. But yeah, we ate up the piranhas and made our way back up top, hoping we can go through and like try and do something, because these guys were super strong. And I honestly had no idea how we were going to win this fight, as we were both like 1 or maybe 2 hits from dying. But then I figured maybe it'd be best if I actually shot at them versus trying to use Runt. That might be the safest bet. And yeah, he was just sitting there. But again, my HUD thing was an issue. It was not working. So I figured I would go through and shoot him and hope that I could kill him fast enough before he got to us. And I did manage to take him out, but then there was the one final one who was trying to kill us. And I went through and I attacked him. He did get 1 hit off on us, but as he turned around, I did go through and get the final shot, taking out the last of the rogue Argies. Note to self, if you're breeding, never let them grow up and then attack them. It is a terrible idea. If you're going to do that, go through and claim them first, and then once they're claimed, you can go through and just shoot them with an arrow to the head, and that will be significantly less trouble than what just happened. Now, I did go through and make it back to my base here, but I still had 2 fully grown rogue Argies that were mad, but they were just stuck in the ground because that's where they had grown up. So I figured I'd go through and hop on my larger Archie here to go through and deal with them, just because he stood a significantly better chance against killing them, and there is no way they would outdamage him, as he had quite a few levels invested in the melee, and of course he had his mate boost as well, even if they did too, but yeah, he was able to go through and make pretty short work of these 2 Argies. Then once I got that mess all figured out, I decided I was going to go through and set out to look for some more tames in the snow biome, as pretty much everything I wanted was going to be over here in this area. And I went through to look at these mammoths, hoping they'd be decent levels. I still really wanted a mammoth to help with the wood production, and unfortunately none of them were great, but I did find this really nice looking deer. He was a level 145, so I figured I was going to go through and tame him, but I had brought Mustard with to also gather resources on this trip. So yeah, I brought him back, and then I made my way back over to the deer. I was able to go through and get him back to the base without any issue whatsoever, got him a nice bola, and then I proceeded to go through and shoot him in the face, and I figured it wouldn't take too many shots, but I was noticing that he wasn't taking headshot damage, and then I also noticed that I hadn't realized this, but there was some sort of aim assist on. It must have been turned on when I went through and reset my settings initially, so I couldn't land the headshots, and yeah, it kept pulling everything, so I did go through and change that immediately after this tame, but I knew being an herbivore, he was going to take quite a long time to actually go through and be able to eat. So I proceeded to go farther into the snow biome with Mustard. I basically went through and picked up a bunch of silica pearls because I knew I was going to need some electronics because I want to craft the chemistry bench. I went through and I looked for a whole bunch of oil because I was going to go through and want to craft the industrial forge once all this metal I had actually earned. Went through and smelted down. And then I was going to go through and use my Inky to harvest up the obsidian. I went through and stopped at this drop, and it was actually pretty decent. The fact that it gave me some prime meat jerky, I was pretty stoked about, as it was more of a time concern than an actual quantity concern. But yeah, I was still pretty happy with it. I then had to go through and land for Stam on this little island here. As any of you have been watching the playthrough, you will know this is the Sabertooth Island, where we continue to encounter Sabertooths with mutations. And then again, this island brought even more joy. There is no Sabertooth this time, but there was a level 135 wolf. And I knew that at this point, since I literally had 0 creatures who were actual carnivores, I could go through and go on the ground, that this wolf was the perfect creature. So I went through and I put Mustard in a cryopod because I didn't want anything to happen to him, and I'm sure that wolf dealt a whole bunch of damage, and I proceeded to go through and lure him over. Now, being in the snow biome and being Ark, of course, nothing ever goes absolutely according to plan, so along the way he also brought a stego with him as he'd gone through and attacked the stego and its children, and fortunately I was able to finally make him decide I was a better meal than the children. And I went through and I was able to get him over here using myself as bait. I went through and I bowled him and worked my way over towards the RG. That way I can go through and just keep ourselves safe and save him from the stego. And we just managed to go through and hit him in the nick of time. And then I proceeded to go through and knock him out. And it didn't take too long, as wolves do take the headshots. And this is a level 250% or 250% damage crossbow. So yeah, it literally only just takes a couple of shots, 3, and he was out. Now I was super excited about this wolf tame, but at the same time, my deer was within like minutes of waking up. I could see the bar ticking down, so I didn't even take the time to make any traps or anything like that. I straight up just left him there and immediately made my way back towards the base. Now I knew that the moment I got back that this deer was within seconds of waking up, so I ran straight to the fridge, didn't even bother parking my RG, went through and grabbed the first stack of crops I was able to go through and find that wasn't a full 100, and was hoping that I actually be able to go through and get to him to be able to feed him before he actually woke up. And I was able to go through and get to him to give him the crops, but then reality set in and I realized he was not going to be able to feed and eat this fast enough before he actually woke up. So I had to run back over to the smithy to grab my narcotics, and then I proceeded to make my way back to him, and oh my goodness, he was down to 18 torpor. But thankfully, I was just in the nick of time, and he actually ended up taming up, and then look at this majestic looking creature. Now at this point, I wasn't sure if the wolf was going to be able to be fully fed yet, so I went through and did a few chores. I went through and I crafted some kibble. I then went through and I crafted some polymer with all of the obsidian that we had required. And then the most important thing of all, it was time to pay tribute to our fallen friend. So I went through and I set up a grave site. There was already a pre-existing grave there, but I went through and I labeled this grave for Captain Crappy. I then proceeded to go through and make my way back over to the wolf, but I got distracted by another drop, and I went through to go pick this up, and we ended up getting attacked, and I ended up on Mustard instead of my RG, but surprisingly, Mustard actually held his own very, very well. I mean, he is pretty tanky and has a buttload of health, but I was not expecting him to deal so much damage. But I guess a lot of these creatures do take headshot damage. That might have played a significant factor in it. But the fact that he has an AoE hit too, and they can hit multiple creatures all at once is kind of crazy. But yeah, he held his own and actually saved us, and I did not feel like insecure or like I was going to die whatsoever. This guy destroyed them. And then, of course, our RG was supportive and gotten through and basically ate up all the corpses. And then once everything was dead, we were able to go through and grab the loot drop. I then made my way all the way back to the wolf and proceeded to go through and stuff him with all of this different prime meat, as the RG had actually had plenty on him, as we had killed plenty of stuff on the way, and he almost immediately tamed up. There was no issues whatsoever. And I figured since we had Mustard, though, I did not want to go through and carry both of them, so I decided I was going to just stick him in a cryopod for the journey home. And then once I was just about to head home, I saw a red drop up on the mountaintop here, just on the side, so I went through and I headed on up there, and there was something amazing. It was a beautiful, pretty decent RG settle, so I went through and swapped that out right away as the RG was putting in work on a regular basis. I then decided I was going to do one last metal run here on the RG with Mustard, as I did not want to have to come back to be able to do this, and I really, really want to be able to get an industrial forge, because I had the intention to be able to go through and make a whole bunch of ammunition, because I really wanted to start knocking out these artifact caves as soon as I can, because we had a lot to accomplish, and the time is slowly ticking down. Now, usually in Ark, when you go do something, you're usually met with a pretty nasty surprise, something unexpected. This was a good unexpected surprise. I found an Ovis. And not just any Ovis, I found a fully grown Ovis with a baby Ovis. Now, I did not have the ability to go through and tame the parent, so I killed the parent, and I chopped up the parent to be able to go through and basically use it for mutton now to put in the fridge. And I went through and I cryoed the baby, because if I could find an additional one in the future here, I could basically go through and breed them up and always have mutton on hand. Now, I did have to go through and fight an RG for the corpse of the parent, but I thought that was the best action, was to kill the parent and save the baby for later. Basically just using this mutton as soon as I could. It would have been great for the wolf, but I was not complaining. This was a really, really good find, and I felt super lucky we had came up here for the metal. After killing the creatures that were right there next to the Ovis, I continued to make my way home, and I found myself another drop with quite a bit of organic polymer. I didn't know if I could use it, but I figured I would just take it, just in case. And then, at long last, we had finally returned home. So at this point in time, we had tamed 3 different friends. Our dear friend, or caribou, or whatever we want to call him, our Megalosaurus. We got ourselves a nice little Ovis and a pretty good wolf and a whole bunch of resources and a bunch of extra sweet loot. Alright, well, I think this is a great place to go through and call it a day for our journey. I've got plenty of organizing to go through and do, so I will do that off screen. If you guys did enjoy today's video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already.